Hi there, it's Dan Plute, the old buzzard. Hey, I've had some leaking in my master cylinder lately. This is actually the second time. I had it covered under warranty once. They put a new master cylinder in it. So it's leaking again. I've only got, it's about 6 rides on it, I guess, since I topped the reservoir off, and the darn thing's leaking again. So if I was only topping it off maybe once a year or something, that'd be okay. But once seals start to go, you never know exactly how long they're going to last. So it'd be dangerous if I let it go any longer. And it's pretty expensive, 300 and some odd dollars, maybe 350 bucks. Don't remember for sure. But I thought I'd capture a little video of this one and show you how it goes. So I've already got the wheel and tire off. It was about now that I decided, hey, maybe I better record this for folks. But your master cylinder is behind this boot right here, and there's, I call them wire ties, I guess that's close enough, the zip tie. There's a zip tie that goes through there that holds it on, a little push clip there. But then there are two of these things, push rivets, I guess they call them. One I've already taken out. It was, let's see. Oh, back. Let's see. Can you see it? Yeah, it's hard to maneuver the stupid camera. But in any case, back in here where I'm pointing, there's a push rivet back there, and then there's one more on top up here to take out. So let me work on getting those things out. Okay, so there it is with the cover off. That's the master cylinder right there. And what I was curious about is where the fluid is leaking from. And I've cleaned it, just got through pressure washing the whole thing, so you can't see it quite so much. But it is not coming from any of the connectors. They're dry as can be. I find it really interesting. I've never seen any vehicle before with, they're called banjo bolts. But if you can see, there are 2 brake lines connected under one bolt. Through the banjo bolts, and one of them has just one brake line. To me, that's really interesting. But this is as far as I wanted to go right now, because now I know that it's the push rod from the pedal that's leaking. And unfortunately, they don't make a repair kit. In fact, I've already looked them up, and there's a new part number that supersedes the original. Since I've had this as the second one already, I'm betting it was a fairly common occurrence. But we'll stop it right here, and I'll go order the part, and then I'll continue to take it apart. So that's how you uncover it. Have a look anyway. Here's the new master cylinder. I got it from Rocky Mountain ATV. It was right around $250. That's a lot of money, doggone it. I really don't understand why they don't have rebuild kits for these things, but it's all about money, I suppose. I think I mentioned already, this is the second one. The first one was replaced under warranty. This one has a superseded part number, so I would imagine there's something a little bit different. Maybe the original had a problem and this one's been redesigned, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too difficult to get installed. Inside the cab, there's one clip. Let's see if we can get you a good picture of that. So it's just a clip to pull off, and then it detaches from the pedal, that clip right there. 2 bolts, and I was kind of surprised it comes with brand new reservoirs, but that's a good thing. The only thing I'm curious about, let's see, so there's it's a dual master cylinder. Oops, sorry about the finger. Dual master cylinder, so I don't know what's the front brakes and rear brakes, but that's the ports for the banjo bolts that bolt up and supply the brake fluid to the slave cylinders. But I'm kind of curious, where is the brake? There's a brake pressure switch for stop. In my case, it's for stop lights, but it also feeds the computer a signal, and it has to do with, it feeds the computer all kinds of information. But in any case, I think the next thing we'll do is we'll suck some fluid out of the existing master cylinder. We'll try and minimize the mess. It's just screws on top here. In fact, you can see how low this one is. That one's all the way down to there already. I just filled that up like 400 or 500 miles ago. So anyway, it's definitely time to put a new master on it. So one of the concepts with brake systems like this is that they're fully closed. They're not vented to the air or the atmosphere at all. They have these rubber. Let's see if we can get it out. See that piece of rubber there, as the brake fluid decreases in the cup, that rubber is supposed to come down and keep the brake fluid completely sealed from the air. Now there is a vent in the top that allows the rubber to come down, but the atmosphere should never come into contact with the brake fluid. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. I've explained that to people a couple of times on the Facebook. Whoops. Yeah, let's try not to make a mess here. Anyway, I'll go get a little thing to suck that out with. And I'm filming all this one-handed, so it'll be impossible to show you actually sucking it out. That's a two-handed job, but I've got this big syringe here that's real handy for sucking fluids out and applying fluids when you need them. I'll just use that to dry these two reservoirs up. So I've sucked them dry, and now to get them off, well, I put a little paper towel in them too to soak up anything else that comes along. When these things drop down, they'll probably leak what's in the lines back to the cup, so hopefully the paper towels will soak it up. Anyway, it's a T25 to get the reservoirs off. And now they can drop down below. Let's see if we can make that a little smaller. They can drop down below where we can get to them from under the fender well. Let's see, that should be them right there. Let's see, and I've got some other stuff tied up to it too. So I have an outdoor temperature sensor and some lighting that's attached to it. So I'll have to cut those free. I believe this kind of wrap was on everything. I don't believe I put that on there. That wire you see back there, that is from a brake switch for my turn signals and brake lights and four-way flashers. So I got to get that unwound. And a couple of wire ties to clip here and here. So okay, so it's all free now. There's nothing left hooked to the lines that come from the reservoirs. Now, I was real curious. I couldn't remember exactly where the pressure switch was and how that worked. Let's see if we can zoom in here. There we go. So, and then if I can get my finger in there. So right back here, that's actually the pressure switch. And it's fastened between it's the outside edge of the banjo, so that pressure switch must also I'm sorry, I'm reading messages as they come in too. The pressure switches must also be the bolt that squeezes the banjo together. And then on the rear, if we can get a picture of that, there's two banjos. Banjo is You know, it's the shape of a banjo, it's hollow in the middle, and that's how the fluid gets from the output port. You know, and the bolts will be hollow with holes in them too. In any case, that's how the fluid flows through them. And so the pressure switch, even if you don't have any brake lights or anything, it's used for a couple of things. Obviously, starting, you know, if you can start it in any gear as long as you got your foot on the pedal, if I remember right. So that's how it senses you've got the brake on for starting. But it'll also keep you from throttling up while you have the brake on. If you try that for more than just a little bit, it'll throw a message and an error code at you. So anyway, it's time to go in the cab and release that clip in there. Okay, so next we're going to disconnect the pedal. So it's just one clip. I don't know if I can do this one-handed or not, but should just be able to push that in. Now, in fact, I'll have to get a screwdriver maybe to push it down and push it in. And I certainly don't want to lose it, so I'm going to put the camera down. Okay, I'm going to have a hard time holding the camera steady when it's zoomed in like this, and I don't have a little tripod or anything. I'm doing it all freehand. But the easiest way to get these clips off, let's see if I can make sure we keep it centered, is let me rotate it around just a little bit. There we go. And grab it by that, lift up, and there we go. Clip off. So we'll just push this pin out, and you don't have to worry much about bending that clip or anything because there's a new one on the new master cylinder. Normally I'd use a tubing wrench on these banjo bolts, but with that pressure switch on the end of it, I don't think I'm going to be able to. So let's see if I put some pressure on this. Oh, it broke loose. Good. Good. So I got that one broke loose. Yep, it turns easy. And just don't twist the wire around with it. Hold the wire steady as you're unbolting the thing. And I do have a whole bunch of paper towels stuffed down in there to catch whatever comes out. Okay, I've got that front banjo bolt off. Comment to make at this point is that there are crush washers between the master cylinder and the bolt, and they don't give you a new crush washer with the new master cylinder. So the proper thing to do would be to go to the store and get a couple of crush washers. And then the other thing is the rear banjo bolt's pretty hard to get to. Now, if they had two guys and a couple of long sockets, you could stick a socket through from the other side. And when one guy guide the socket onto the banjo bolt and the other guy twisting from the other side. But I don't have any help, so I got to do it myself. I think what I will try, I was able to get the rear one loose. I was able to break it, but I can only turn it about an eighth of a turn at a time. That's pretty frustrating. You know, something else that would help if a guy frustrates easily is to pull the shock mount off and tip the shock way up, and that'll give you more room to maneuver back in there. But for that rear bolt, that won't help a whole lot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull both mounting bolts. Let's see, there's, well, I can't get a good angle. There's one of the mounting bolts there. Other one's visible up on top. I'll pull those, see if I can't rotate the thing enough that I can get that last connection undone. And there we go. I got the master cylinder loose, and you can see that banjo up there is real easy to get to now. So we'll have this thing all the way off in a jiffy. Pull the rod out that goes into the cab, and then the whole assembly comes out even farther, and now it's real easy to get on those bolts. So what I'll do, I'll get them both started before I even put the the rod in for the new one, get them all started and ready to torque down, bolt it up and then torque them. Again, be real careful you don't lose those crush washers. And there we go, it's off. And, I think if I have a recommendation, it would probably be take the time to pull the shock off and give yourself a little more room. It's not terribly hard with the shock on, but it would be even easier with the shock off. It's been leaking into that boot a lot. So I'll take some brake cleaner and a rag and go through it. But protect the brake line fittings. Don't let any contamination get into them. So, boy, we're getting close. So they look pretty identical. I really can't tell any difference on a close examination. The castings look identical. Everything looks just exactly the same. So I would imagine the superseded part number is because the internals are maybe beefed up a little bit so they don't keep doing this. Like I say, this is the second time on this machine. So let's see, I'll need to transfer those grommets over to the new reservoirs. And then I think I'll set these two rods, set the new rod as exactly the same length as the old. Kind of interested that the old rod is not really locked down, so that's kind of interesting to me. It should be, but I'm sure it's set at the length that it was supposed to be. So those are two little projects to do right here on the bench. And then let's see, I really haven't cleaned that boot out yet, but clean the boot out, set that rod, move the two grommets over, and I think I'm ready to bolt things back together. You'll notice the little brass, it looks brass to me, the brass metal inside the grommet, that's so that you can't over torque or over tighten on the plastic, and you push those out in order to get the grommet out, and then of course put them back in once the grommet's inserted. So here's a little tip for you. This is the sensor that is it's a pressure sensor for the brake pressure, but it's also the banjo bolt where the brake fluid gets transmitted through it. And then there you go, you can see the hole there that it goes out through the banjo fitting. But I kind of assumed that this was just a plug here, and as I was unscrewing it, I was just rotating the pin on the plug there, and that's not the case. There's actually two wires in here, and I was actually twisting the wire. I was very fortunate not to break anything there, but I discovered as I was putting it back together that that wasn't right. You actually have to take it off, and to get these connectors off, let's see, where is it? Not that side right there. There's just a little tab that you have to push on, and then the connector will slide off. But that's my hot tip for today. And I did end up taking off the shock so I could get to it. I'm really afraid of cross-threading this thing into the master cylinder, and that certainly wouldn't be any good. Having this off, I think, will help get the bolt started correctly. In fact, I think I'll go thread it in right now without even having it up against the machine. But anyway, I took the shock off and discovered that is not just a push-on connector there. When you take it off, well, you can see kind of how much I've twisted the whole thing right there. So don't do that. Take it off and just let it turn as you unscrew the bolt. And okay, we'll go back to it. So both fittings start and turn very easily, so as long as I have everything lined up right, I shouldn't cross-thread anything. I just got to make sure it's all square. I just don't want to ruin this $250 miniature monstrosity here. Okay, there we are again with both of the banjo bolts on, and just barely snugged. Don't want to torque them down, excuse me, until I get the thing mounted up there tight. And anyway, again, yeah, be real careful of this wire. Disconnect it. It gets pinned in up here. But disconnect it before you take any of the brake lines off, and don't let it get all twisted up like I did. One thing you guys might notice about me is sometimes I'll admit my mistakes just as well as brag about my successes, but that's to help everybody out, you know, learn from what I do wrong. So yeah, take the shock off. There's a lot of room to work on it as long as you got the shock off. That only takes a couple minutes, and I should have started out that way. It's still going actually pretty quickly, so I'm not unhappy, but just sharing a few tips. We're gonna put her back together now, bolted up. Okay, everything's bolted down. The banjo bolts are torqued. The mounting bolts are torqued. I've got the reservoirs mounted. Everything's looking good there. But see, I am not about to open these new reservoirs with all the sand and gook around them. So we're gonna blow all that crap off before we open them up and fill them. I'm actually waiting for the wife to get back with a can of .4 brake fluid, but getting ready. It's in fact, I could use it just about now. Hope she's back soon. Don't contaminate your brake fluid. Well, I'm waiting for the wife to come home with some new .4 brake fluid for me. I thought I'd clean this old cylinder up and have a look and see just why aren't these things rebuildable. And there's just it's an inside snap ring, and I expect I'm going to pull it out, and there's going to be a spool in there with a couple of O-rings on it. And if you could just hone the thing out and put new O-rings on it, I bet it would be good to go. So let's pull that snap ring out. So here's what's in it. That's the troublemaker. Wonder if it'll focus. These rubbers right here, they're not an O-ring. They're, gosh, I remembered the word for it here a little while ago, but it's not truly an O-ring, but it's a piece of rubber like an O-ring. And this one here is the culprit. I can't really see too much of a defect or any defect in it, but since that's the back and it was leaking out of this area, that has to be less than sealed up. If they just sell us these darn $2 pieces of rubber seal, yeah, I wish I could remember what the heck they call that kind of a, but if they just sell us those, you could hone this thing out, just use a real fine hone on it, and put new rubber in it, and it should be all sealed up again, just like back in the days when we used to rebuild our slave cylinders. So anyway, if anybody knows what those things are called and if they're available somewhere, drop me a note. I'd really like to know. I'd rebuild this one, put it back together, and hold it for a reserve. But yeah, that's what's in it. So I do have my .4 brake fluid now. I think I'll go fill it up and pressure test it. Oh, there is one more thing I just want to point out to you, if I can see it, and if you can see it. Go on, focus on that. Focus on it. You see those little holes right at my thumbnail and right at my thumbnail? There's 4 holes around it. There, now you can see them pretty good. They actually pressurize this piece of rubber to expand out and seal the best it can. And that's the forward one. That's not the one that was leaking. If you look at the back here, there's no such thing. Let's see if we can get it back in focus again. See, there's nothing to help keep that seal expanded out and doing a good job. So it's more prone to leak, I guess, than the front because there's nothing that makes it expand. Just wanted to mention that. Yeah, I got them both filled. They would not pump up at all. I was kind of hoping I'd get away without having to bleed them. Bleeding them obviously is the most professional way, but if they had pumped up firm and I felt like I was getting good braking front and rear, I wasn't going to worry about it. But in any case, went in and had some lunch, and still evidently I'm not getting the master cylinder primed for some reason, so I will have to bleed the brakes. Okay, here's my cheap little Mighty Vac bleeder. You're really supposed to start at the farthest position away from the master cylinders. Should be passenger side rear, then go to driver side rear, passenger side front, and then this wheel, the driver's side front. But for right now, I just want to get some fluid sucked down into that cylinder. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to show you because I'm one-handed again. But you just open the bleeder there. Well, actually, you can put a little vacuum. Put a little vacuum on it first. That's fine. Doesn't bother. And then open up the. Come on. Uh-oh. Boy, those things are. There we go. Open it. Ah, here comes some, and oh boy, it does have a bunch of air in it. I probably didn't even capture that, but I'll pump it up again. I'm still getting air out of it. Oh, that's probably air from the line. But then close it. Pump it up. Open. Close. Poor photography. Sorry guys, you get the idea. Just after pumping a little bit, you can see that one's down halfway. So the way I put the reservoirs on, the rear one represents the front. At least I know which one's which now. Well, I didn't get any pedal at all from sucking the air out of the left front. We did get a little bit of fluid down through the reservoir and into the master cylinder, obviously, because the reservoir's half empty for the front. So we're going to go back here to the rear and do the same thing. Pump it up, and in fact, it's sitting there holding 10 inches of vacuum right now. We could even pump it up more than that. There's 18 inches of vacuum, something like that. And then we'll open the bleeder. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see this for beans. It actually looked a little bit nasty, so I'm kind of glad I'm back here doing this. Anyway, you get the idea. I'll have to go around all four and do all four of them, see what happens. Well, that's hot. There's no doubt about that. It must be 90 or 95 degrees outside by now. I ended up having to go around and bleed all four wheels 3 different times, which was about two cups of reservoir fluid. The reservoir cups. 2 or 2.5 times of those. Took quite a bit of fluid to get all the air out. I was kind of surprised by that. But yeah, so it took a lot of bleeding to get pedal back. I was kind of surprised. Anyway, now it's time to do a little bit of a pressure test. What I'll do, I'll make sure that the where the banjos are just absolutely clean and dry, and every joint that I can see, that's really at the banjos. I'm getting tired. And then I'll sit in the rig and I'll hold really good pressure on the brakes for 2 or 3 minutes, see if they sink at all, and then I'll come back out and see if they picked up any moisture anywhere. But I think I've got it all bled. I've got pretty good pedal back, and I think it's going to work out just fine now. It's just too hot. See ya.
So, what I'm trying to say is that, in conclusion, I have no idea.